Hello, my name is Todd Stuendick, and I'm the State Director of AARP Nebraska. Thank you for joining us today for today's presentation on the Tuskegee Airmen who called Nebraska home and African Americans who served. We're very honored today to have Eric Ewing joining us. Eric is the Executive Director for the Great Plains Black History Museum here in Omaha, Nebraska. He's also retired in the United States Navy. Thank you for your service, Eric. Eric has a background in higher education, having served as an academic dean and an adjunct professor. He's very active in the community and serves on the board of directors for the Child Saving Institute, the Stevens Center as their board treasurer, and co-chair of the 100 Black Men of Omaha's annual African American History Challenge. He's also on the advisory committee for Men Against Domestic Violence. Welcome, Eric, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to, as I would say, be of service, and hopefully everyone will enjoy the tour and discussion today.
Very good. I'm going to turn it over to you to give us a little tour of and to talk about the exhibits you have on these issues, and I'll see you at the end, and we'll have a little discussion.
Sounds good. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to get the camera set up here. All right. As Todd mentioned, this exhibit is called the Tuskegee Airmen and African Americans Who Serve. I always hear, folks say that, the military goes unrecognized, those who serve. And as a former military person myself, I tend to agree. And I also say if the military as a whole tends to go unrecognized, minorities who serve in the military go even more unrecognized. So today we're going to talk about a few of those individuals, and as we go on this exhibit, and then also talk a little bit about the history of the Tuskegee Airmen. The uniform that you're looking at here belonged to Staff Sergeant Harrison, who was a World War II veteran. Although not a Tuskegee Airman, he was a native to Omaha. So that's why that is being displayed there. In Nebraska, we have quite a few Tuskegee Airmen that were either from Omaha or moved to Nebraska or to Omaha because of their military service. More so than what you probably would think for the size of city and the state that, the size of population that Nebraska has. The individual that you're looking at and you see right now is Lieutenant Woodrow Morgan. He was a Tuskegee Airman and a red tail pilot. Now, as I go through, I'll explain to you what's the difference between being just a Tuskegee Airman or a red tail. Lieutenant Ralph Orduna, he also was a Tuskegee Airman and a red tail. He got out of the military after World War II. He then obtained his commercial pilot's license, and he never flew a plane again. He is also a native of Omaha, Nebraska, and he's a graduate of South High School here in Omaha. The posters that you see here are posters from a hotel known as the Patton Hotel, which was located here in Omaha, and it was one of the hotels that was featured in the Negro Green Book of Travel. The hotel was owned by Mrs. Minnie Patton, and these are a couple of the posters that hung in the hotel when it stood. And it was located downtown here in Omaha, currently now where the post office is located. They were donated to the museum by the Artisan family. This is Lieutenant Colonel Charles Lane. He was a Tuskegee Airman and a red tail. A couple of weeks ago, I met a young lady who he had mentored back when she was younger, and he was influenced her to to join the Air Force and go to the Air Force Academy. She then went on to become an architect. This was Lieutenant Colonel Harrison Tull. He was also a Tuskegee Airman and a red tail. A lot of the Tuskegee Airmen, the red tails, the pilots stayed in the military because the only way in which they were going to be able to continue to fly planes was by being in the military. This is a jacket that was donated to the museum that has all the different squadrons that were assigned to the, what should I say, part of the Tuskegee Airmen. Here in Omaha, we have in Nebraska, I should say, we have two schools named after Tuskegee Airmen. We have Paul Adams Elementary School, which is named after Lieutenant Colonel Paul Adams, and that school is in Lincoln, Nebraska. He was a Tuskegee Airman and a Red Tail. And then here in Omaha, we have a school named after Captain Alfonso Davis Middle School, which is located out in Northwest Omaha. Unfortunately, Captain Davis, although a native of Omaha, he went missing in action during World War II, and his remains were never recovered. And the last remaining surviving Tuskegee Airman here in Nebraska is Corporal Robert Holtz. He was a Tuskegee Airman. The Tuskegee Airmen consisted of the following fighter groups. The fighter group was called the 332nd Fighter Group, and it consisted of the following four fighter squadrons: the 99th Fighter Squadron, the 100th Fighter Squadron, the 301 Fighter Squadron, and the 302 Fighter Squadron. Their assignment were to protect the bomber planes as they would drop bombs on sites. So their job was to monitor and protect them. And then this is just a poster that was donated to the museum, which features the Tuskegee Airmen, or the Red Tails, which existed from 1941 to 1949. And there was also the 477th Bombardment Group, which consisted of the following four bombardment squadrons: the 619th, the 616th, the 617th, and the 618th bombardment squadrons. This is a replica of the statue that was made to honor the Tuskegee Airmen. The actual statue is on display at the Air Force Academy in Colorado. They only made 99 of these particular replicas. Now, initially, when I first found out that they only made 99, I was kind of curious. I'm like, well, why only 99? That's kind of odd. I mean, why not just make 100? Well, the reason they only made 99 was because the 99th Fighter Squadron was the first all-black fighter squadron in the military. So that's why they made only 99. This is the Congressional Gold Medal, which was awarded to the Tuskegee Airmen back in 2007. This particular medal was awarded to the Orduna family in honor of their father, Lieutenant Ralph Orduna. The statue replica was also donated to his family. The nurses that you see here, they were Tuskegee Airmen. As I was mentioning earlier, as I was showing you some of the Tuskegee Airmen, and then I was saying Red Tails, in order to be considered a Tuskegee Airman, you had to serve with one of the fighter squadrons, which was referred to as the Red Tails. So if you were a woman, European American, and you served with one of the fighter squadrons or the fighter groups or the bombardment groups or squadrons, then that made you a Tuskegee Airman. What made you a Red Tail was that you were a pilot and that you flew the planes. And this is my 20-year contribution to the military. The photo you see here are of local African-American women that served during World War II. some people may not know, but out in western Nebraska, the 9th and 10th Cavalry of the Buffalo Soldiers were stationed out there. There's a couple of stories on how the Buffalo Soldiers received their name. One story says that the Native Americans, when they saw the black soldiers, because of their black woolly hair and brown skin, they said that resembled that of the buffalo. So that's why they referred to them as the Buffalo Soldiers. Another story goes that because of when they saw the black cavalrymen fight, the black cavalrymen fought just hard and fierce like the buffalo. So that's why they were referred to as the Buffalo Soldier. Right here are two burial certificates that were issued for two African Americans that served during the Civil War that are buried here in Nebraska. They're buried over in South Omaha. Again, this is a plaque that was given to Lieutenant Ralph Orduna. And this is a photo of a group of African Americans right before they went off to war during World War II. And this was taken right across the street at the Omaha Star, which is the oldest owned and operated African American business in the state of Nebraska. And then this is also a photo of one of African American woman who served during World War II. And unfortunately, the name is not clear enough for me to distinguish who she was. But I always want to make sure that we represent all folks who served. And then this was recently donated to us, and I haven't had a place to put it yet. But this is I'm going to try to hold this up here. Sorry about that. This is a panoramic photo of a group of soldiers who fought in World War I. It was recently donated to the museum, and the individuals that donated it to the museum, they said their grandfather is in the photo, but they don't know which one he was. Or should I say their great-grandfather. And I have not yet quite found a place to put it yet, so I've just set it there for now. And that's pretty much the tour. I'm going to try to turn the camera back around. And then I'll be ready for questions if Todd has any questions for me.
Great, Eric. That was great. I'll say, my understanding is the Tuskegee Airmen were a part of the U.S. Army Air Corps. Since you're a Navy guy, I appreciate your willingness to share the spotlight with another branch of service.
Oh yeah, they did start off as part of the Army because the fact that the Air Force had not yet been established. But once the Air Force was established, then it was pretty much all the accolades go to the Air Force, although they didn't start off in that arena.
So I think we should circle back around to, just so everyone's clear, is part of the reason why the Tuskegee Airmen are so important is it actually was a vestige of the segregation that was occurring in the military and at the, well, it wasn't Department of Defense then, but in the Department of Defense. These talented pilots were not allowed to serve with their white comrades.
Yeah, there were actually it was more of an experiment to show what they could not do versus what they could do, and that was the unfortunate thing. I'm trying to think of the individual's name. I made a post on our Facebook page just a couple of days ago. The Tuskegee Airmen who actually flew Eleanor Roosevelt in the plane. His birthday was just this week, and I can't remember the name right off the bat. But yeah, this was more of an experiment of what they couldn't do versus what they could do.
And then they found out as a result of that experiment that they could do a lot,
Yes,
and do it very well.
yes.
Absolutely.
And for them, it was, they had to be the best of the best and didn't have room for errors, because their errors would not just reflect upon themselves, but their error would also reflect upon any and everyone else, who was trying to accomplish the things that they were accomplishing.
Absolutely. So it seems like we have a disproportionate number of Tuskegee Airmen who sort of settled in Nebraska. Is there a reason behind that?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, some were actually born here, but the others, they came here by way of the military. As you mentioned, they were part of the Army Corps, Air Corps, but then they became part of the Air Force once the Air Force was established. And Offutt Air Force Base is just, as they would say, a stone's throw away. And so a lot of them came here because they got assigned to Offutt. And as some folks say with Offutt, once you get on Offutt, you can't get off it.
That's good. That's good. So do I have this right? Is that not all the Tuskegee Airmen were red tails? Is that correct?
That is correct. The pilots were considered the red tails. All the ancillary services, those who serviced the planes, did the administrative things and stuff like that, they were considered Tuskegee Airmen. And in all actuality, the term Tuskegee Airmen didn't come into existence until 1955. I believe it was about in May of 1955. There was a journalist looking to do a report on black pilots, in the military, and he came across the red tails as they were referred to at the time, and he saw the various information, and he saw that they did a lot of their training in Tuskegee, Alabama. So then he coined the phrase Tuskegee Airmen.
Okay. And how did the red tail name come about?
Well, the commanding general wanted to be able to identify the different fighter groups, and so he assigned each fighter group a different color to paint the tail of their plane, and the red tails or the Tuskegee Airmen just happened to be assigned the color red. Had they been assigned blue, we would be talking about the blue tails today.
Interesting. So there's a popular myth out there that these red tail fighter pilots never lost a bomber in their escort mission. Is that actually true?
For the movies, it's true, but realistically, no. Unfortunately, they did lose some bombers, but they lost bombers at a lot lower number than a percentage than their European American counterpart fighter pilots. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, if they deviated from the task in which they were assigned to do, it would not only impact them, but it would have additional impact upon the other pilots. So they pretty much had to stay on task, and they couldn't go chasing off after some other fighter pilot from Germany or some other country to get a kill. They had to stay on station, but they did have some losses, but at a greater, like less than the other fighter pilots.
Top Gun before Top Gun.
Yes.
So what happened to the Tuskegee Airmen program? When did it, sort of get wrapped up and folks get folded into the regular Army Air Corps and then eventually Air Force?
Well, I believe I can't remember exactly when the forces, military forces was integrated, but once they were integrated, they still maintained some of the stuff about the Tuskegee Airmen because of the fact of the history and the legacy, but as just African American pilots being assigned strictly to that particular group of fighter pilots, once they did implement or integrate the military, then that kind of went away.
Very good. The exhibit looks terrific. I can't wait to get there and see it. Tell us where the museum is located. Give us time to plug the museum a little bit.
Yeah, we're located at 2221 North 24th Street in the old historical Jewel building, which was at one time the home of the Dreamland Ballroom, which was where a lot of the jazz greats played. We're open Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from 1 to 5. We're open for face-to-face visitors with groups no larger than 8. But in order to visit, you have to schedule an appointment. And to schedule an appointment, you can go to our website at gpblackhistorymuseum.org. And then you can then schedule an appointment. Face masks are required, and temperatures are taken at the door. And then we also practice social distancing.
Very good. The website is below there if you want to go, and I'm sure they can find out more information about the museum. Could you give us a little bit? This exhibit is enough to go, but what other exhibits do you have at the museum for people to see?
Currently, we have on display, and we opened that last week, the DePores Club, a civil rights group ahead of their time. We have a yin and a yang exhibit called Hate and Hope. We have a smaller reduced exhibit called 24th and Glory. And then we also have an exhibit called Black Citizenship in the Age of Jim Crow.
And just to give a little plug, in a couple of weeks, we'll be doing another session with you where you'll discuss the DePores Club with our audience as well. Can you give us a little on the history of the Great Plains Black History Museum? When did it start, and what is your mission as you see it?
Yeah, well, the museum opened back in 1976. The founder was Mrs. Bertha Calloway. She started the museum just a couple of blocks currently where we're located now at on 23rd and Lake Street. And our mission is we just did a new strategic plan, and so we changed our mission. And so I have not gotten it down pat, but our basically our mission is to educate and celebrate the rich history of African Americans. And I also like to always say too, it's American history told through the lens of African Americans, because it's everything we talk about are events and things that have occurred throughout American history first. And so it's history that not only impacts the African American community, but impacts America as a whole.
Absolutely. You and I spoke last summer about Juneteenth, and I think so often African American history has gotten lost, and I think so many of us didn't learn enough African American History Museum and how it is American history, not just African American history. And so I appreciate everything that the museum is doing, and it is definitely a jewel for the entire Omaha community to have here. And the stories you're telling are important stories for us all to keep alive. So any other final thoughts for our audience today on Tuskegee Airmen or anything else?
I do want to share this month also is our annual membership drive, and we for this month we really try to push membership because that helps us be able to continue the story and to continue to serve the community at large and now nationally because of the virtual environment.
Very good. Eric, thank you for the information. It's terrific. I hope people get a chance to check out the website and to get to the museum when they can safely. And I appreciate all the information today. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Todd. Thank you for having me, and have everyone stay safe.
Thank you very much.